All right, so good morning, all. Welcome to our first leadership development session through the Office of URELAH Hornet Leadership Academy. My name is Danielle K. Craig. I am your Associate Director with the Office of URELAH. We also have on the line our amazing newly minted Dr. Shonda Poe, who is our Executive Director, and our program assistant, who is, y'all know her and love her, Miss Terry Paul Smith. We are here to greet you today, and we are welcoming Professor Sonya McCray here to our first session, Bridging the Gap, Adaptive Listening. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to get right on because I don't want to take up Professor McCray's time, but I do want to let you know that you want to stay on until the end of the live because if you know me, our freshmen, welcome, 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 welcome. But you'll learn this about me. I always got a giveaway. I said that real fast so y'all didn't catch it. But if you guys stay on until the end of the line, end of the session, your name will be put into a name pulley generator. I will give out some. You see, Miss Terry, we have some gift cards from Grubhub. So you want to stay on, be active, be involved, participate. Of course, Professor McCray will tell you how to interact with her. But as of now, go ahead and let's give her a virtual clap and welcome to our first session. So thank you. And Professor McCray, please take the reins.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Craig. Can everyone hear me okay? All right,
Good to go.
thumbs up. I first want to thank Delaware State University and the Office of Undergraduate Research, Experiential Learning, and Honors, better known as URELAH, for inviting me here today. I am so super excited to be a part of this leadership development series, and especially for the topic, Bridge the Gap, Adaptive Listening. So the title of my specified topic today, because I was given the topic adaptive listening, I'm going to call it the case for adaptive listening. So in my slides, I'm going to build a case for why we need adaptive listening and what adaptive listening can do, not just for others in your organizations as a leader, but also for you. So as you know, I am Professor Sonya McCray, as Ms. Craig has stated, and who am I? So first, I'm an educator. I've been in education since 2008, not just in the realm of college, teaching as an adjunct at Delaware State University, but I started off in the Capital School District at in Dover, Delaware, and I remain there now. I actually went back to teaching in the Capital School District. So right now I am teaching first grade. So I get to see a little bit of the range from first grade to college. And I also last year, if you're not a freshman, you would have gotten a lot of emails from me. I was the assistant director of the writing studio at Delaware State University, among other roles. So education is my passion. I don't usually call myself a professor. I call myself an education enthusiast. I'm also an entrepreneur, very briefly. I'll get into that a little bit more later. A community leader, and that just means I sit on the board of an organization called the Green Beret Project, where basically we bring leadership to high risk areas in the community of Delaware. So at risk areas, basically impoverished areas that may need additional support for their students, so we can build them to be leaders so then they can lead their communities and lead the world. And I'm also a wife and a mother. I can't leave that out because it matters as well. I love to create, I love to sing, I love to read, I love to watch films. I'm also a foodie and I lover of authentic stories. So one of my fun facts is that I also help people get their stories into books and so that they can tell their story, tell their testimony. So that's a little bit about me, but today is about you. You are the leader that we are trying to inspire today. So who are you? Now, Ms. Craig asked most of you who were here at the beginning to put your name and your major in the chat. So if you did not do that already, please put your name and your major in the chat. Also, if you can add your classification. If you happen to not be a student, you can add your title. So if I have anyone who is not a student on the line and you don't have a classification, you're not a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or graduate student, just put your title in the chat. And then also my second question, and you can put this all together in one chat or separate. I'm going to glance at it in a moment. Name a leader that you admire and why. Don't have to give me a whole paragraph. It can be a quick, you can say President Barack Obama, and give me a quick one-liner as to why. If you can't think of a reason why, just still put the leader that you admire, and we will derive some thoughts about that leader from there. So it looks like I have a lot of seniors so far, some juniors, awesome, nursing majors, political science, wonderful. Who else do I have? Economics. Okay, love it. Sophomores in the house. Shout out to the sophomore. Major is business. Okay, so they are coming in. So please in the chat, keep adding who you are. So it looks like I have a lot of seniors and juniors and sophomores, not so many freshmen just yet. But I will say that those classifications means that you're on your way into the working world. And you may already be in the working world. So I hope that this presentation supports you in your endeavors. So let's talk about a little bit about what adaptive listening could mean. I want you to think, and I know I already asked you to put something in the chat, but while you're there, think about what adaptive listening means. What comes to mind? And you can put it in the chat if you want. I do have some definitions on the screen. I like participation. I think everyone should be able to unmute. Can I have a friend unmute? I may try to call on a friend. Oh, we have a freshman. Awesome. How about Sydney Harris? Is it possible for you to unmute and read my definitions on my screen? I don't like to hear my own voice the whole time. Is that possible, Sydney? I know I put you on the spot. Okay, I don't want to take too long. How about Jelani? Unless Sydney's on. Can one of you read my definitions?
Just
Go
leading.
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Read the definitions I have on the screen for me for listen and adapt, please.
Listen to hear something with thoughtful intention, give consideration, adapt to make fit, as for new use, often by modification.
Awesome. There you go. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So listen, we're talking about adaptive listening. If we put these two thoughts together, basically, we have been listening our entire lives. I'm not going to hone in too much on how to listen, what listening is, but I am going to talk about it briefly. And adapt. Adapt basically means to make fit, often by modification, which basically would mean change, which is the word at the bottom. We've had some evolution over time of listening models. I know for a fact that all of you have heard of active listening. It's probably been drilled into you if you've been in leadership or professional realm for any length of time. Active listening is something that you're asked to do from preschool on up. Then the model kind of rose up to empathetic listening. And the difference between active listening and empathetic listening still is an evolution of active listening. You're still going to have to pay attention. You're still going to have to make your considerations. You're still going to have to pay very close attention to what the person is saying and respond appropriately. But empathetic listening added feelings and emotions and compassion back into listening. Because for a while there, we were so actively listening for the facts and the figures that a little bit of the compassion was lost. So in the evolution of listening, it then went to intentional listening. Intentional listening mainly just emphasizes the fact that we have to listen on purpose, with a purpose, for a goal. And those are similar models to adaptive listening. Adaptive listening also involves these three, but it adapted. Why? We have changing times. What happened in 2020? COVID hit. Everything had to change. Listening models change because of technology. In the past, we used to say a phrase, and some of you who are a little older may know this. We used to say, keep your ears to the streets to listen to see what was happening out in the world. Okay. Now you can keep your ear to social media. Everything is at your fingertips. So listening models evolve. I will say that if you look up adaptive listening online, the first thing that's going to pop up is how Alexa, if everyone looks at this picture on the screen, how Amazon Echo or an Alexa has adaptive listening. So based on your speech patterns, based on how fast or how slow you speak, is how Alexa is going to either slow or quicken her speed of listening to then tell you what you need. I have an Alexa in my room. If I say, Alexa, what time is it? I don't know if you heard that, but she said it's 11:11 a.m. All right. So right now, there isn't a lot of literature on the phrase adaptive listening. So I had to listen and research to therefore put together something to let you know exactly what we can do with adaptive listening in leadership. One of those things that I researched was a particular book. And I do have a quote here on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and read it for the sake of time. Adaptive leadership is the practice of mobilizing people to tackle tough challenges and thrive. That's probably what the anthem was in 2020. Where were you all in 23? You might have been in high school. Some of you may have already been in college, but we had to adapt. We had to mobilize. We had to take everything from in-person to online. We had to get used to being at home, going and dressing up in all sorts of suits and masks to go outside. So adaptive leadership is about tackling challenges and modifying the way we do things to not just survive those times, but to thrive. I actually very much enjoyed this book. This is something I had to read to prepare for this. And when I say read, I actually listen to it on audiobook, Audible. I don't read as many books as I used to. Time is slim. We are now an auditory and a visual world. So I listened to this book. It was about 10 hours and some change long. So if you were interested in something to help you advance in your understanding of adaptive leadership, you can also check this book out. And I will say that if you look for a book on adaptive listening, you're not really going to find it. The only book that I found for adaptive listening says it comes out in January 2024. So this is a very progressive topic, and this is a new topic. So if you get on board with it now and start to mobilize and use it now, you can be ahead of the game with your other leaders. So what is adaptive listening? Based on my research, I made up this definition. Adaptive listening, I called it reactive hearing and observing that addresses challenges or gaps and often facilitates change. I want you to read that to yourself one more time. Yes, be proactive. I love that. Reactive hearing and observing that addresses challenges or gaps and often facilitates change. Now, that's similar to the adaptive leadership definition, but it puts the hearing and the observing in it. So why do we need adaptive listening? The first reason is number one, to mitigate uncertainty. These are clearly uncertain times, and they pretty much have always been through the history of the world. We just went past 9/11 a few days ago. 9/11 a few decades ago was a day that was not a good day for the United States of America, okay? And that probably brought in my generation's mind and many others that, hey, we can't just wake up each day and think that everything is going to be the same, everything is going to be okay. There is uncertainty. Even now, we don't know if we're on the brink of war. We don't know who's going to do what. We don't know if cryptocurrency is going to take over. There's all of these uncertain times. So adapting your listening helps you to keep your ear to your research and your observations, to listen for solutions and be proactive about those uncertain times. Another reason why we need adaptive listening is to align ourselves with things that are happening in our organization. We have to adapt and align who we are and what we do to what is going on. So my definition here says to make a state of an organization line up with the stated goals and mission. Has anyone ever been a part of an organization and their mission statement was a beautiful, wonderful mission statement, but as you started to get involved with the organization, the things that were happening did not line up with the mission statement at all, or maybe there were things that were off? So as you get to know an organization more and more, sometimes you start to see some gaps, some issues, some misalignment. And so what adaptive listening can do to help you listen carefully to find solutions for those issues and to bridge that gap, which is our next topic, to bridge gaps. That's why we need adaptive listening, to create a practical path, to move from challenges and shortcomings to create goals and enact solutions. And the last one says to grow. We have to remain relevant and useful within evolving times and circumstances. So today, We might have in-person learning. We may have in-person campus. And I'm not going to speak anything else, so I'm going to just skip this example because I don't want to go back to Zoom learning or anything like that. So let me give another example. When I went to school, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have Zoom. We barely had anything like Blackboard or Canvas to go on and check out your, your syllabus. Everything was in person. Everything was on paper. So we all as a society had to grow. And even now with the advent of AI, school systems and individuals are going to have to grow, and businesses all the more. Why? Because adaptation is continual. The evolution is continual. It's not going to stop. So our listening must start. Why? Again, to be proactive. We need adaptive listening so we can hear before the issues begin. So in 2008, I went to student teach at a local middle school. And I was so surprised because out of the blue, in the hallway, a fight started between two students. That was one of the reasons why I went to higher education. I said, oh no, I just want to teach people. I don't want to have to break up fights. If I had the experience and under my belt that I have now, that fight, I guarantee you it would not have been a surprise to me. Why? Because I would have been paying better attention to the students. I'd have been listening to what's going on. I would have seen the climate of the classroom. I would have known that little Johnny and little Jimmy were at odds with one another, and I would have been able to stop that fight before it began. So that's one of the reasons why adaptive listening is important. But sometimes we do have to be reactive. Sometimes you're coming into an organization and the gaps are already there. And so now you have to establish an understanding of what's going on and how then can you make change. So proactivity is great, but sometimes you come in a little bit late to the party and now you have to start to help the adaptation to occur. So why do we have adaptive listening? To be a proactive, also to be reactive, but ultimately to act. There's another reason why. I'm not done yet, and I have a little some water there, and I'm going to ask you what you think that means in a moment. Because something is festering. Like I said, you can come into an organization and realize, hey, there's some problems that have been around for a long time, and they fester. People are still complaining. There's no growth. Everything is stagnant. Everything is still, and times are changing, and we're not moving with them. We have to move. Maybe you're tired of hearing the same issues and complaints within the organization. Maybe you're the one with the complaints, and that's okay. Complaints mean that you recognize there's an issue and you have the heart and the desire to make a change. Maybe a strong desire exists to meet the problems with solutions and hope. And instead of just continually and consistently saying, oh, this is wrong, this will never change. Why do they do it like this? Why do they do it like that? You become a part of the solution. And maybe adaptive listening and change is necessary because no other option exists. Back to COVID times, we didn't have the option to say, oh, we're just going to stay in person. No, everything shut down. So this is why we have to adapt and listen carefully to the time. So right here, I have some water. Some of it doesn't look so fresh. That's what I like to call stagnant water. It's been sitting there. I need someone to come off of mute and tell me, what do you know about stagnant water? Water just sits there for a while and it's hot outside. What happens over time? What starts to appear? Anybody? And there's no right or wrong answer. Anything you say is applaudable. I appreciate you participating. It can even be one of our URELAH team. But what happens when you have water that sits for a while, especially in the summer?
When there's stagnant water, it usually grows bacteria and it's unsafe to drink or even bathe in.
Absolutely. Good answer. Bacteria, you can't drink it. You don't want to touch it, not alone bathe in it. It starts to smell. Thank you for that answer as well. Appreciate you. It starts to smell. I know when I'm around water that's stagnant, mosquitoes. Mosquitoes is my main problem because they will find a way and they will find your legs, okay? And they love stagnant water alongside the bacteria. None of that is great. So that has happened when problems fester and things grow stagnant in the organization and we don't adapt. It becomes like this water. It stinks. It has a smell to it. Nobody wants to be around it. Nobody can use it. Nobody can allow it to fuel them like water. We're not going to do that. So if you notice, I'm kind of doing a bit of some who, what, where, when, why questioning here. Those are always the essential questions that can lead to some answers when we're driving for the case for adaptive listening. So who needs to enact adaptive listening? Of course it's you. That's why you're here in this workshop. That's why we have this topic and I'm here. If you notice, I have a friend here in boots who was jumping around in puddles, which is something a lot of us don't do anymore. But maybe when we were kids, if our parents allowed us, and even if we didn't, we jumped in muddy puddles. And that's what I want to tell you today. Listening and leadership is no longer a spectator sport. It really never was. Adaptive listening drives and pushes that urge for us to do something and not just sit there with that stagnant water. If that stagnant water had been sitting there for a while, even if this child or this person goes and jump in it, it's stagnant no more. It's still not good water yet, but at least it's moving a little bit, probably on the verge of being fixed or being maybe fresh water added to it, or maybe the rain's going to come down. But this is the first step of change, is getting in there. Change agents play in muddy puddles. So we need to get on our creativity hats, get on our mindsets that we're just not going to stand around while that stagnant water sits there. We play. Play means work and get to work. So you suit up, put your boots on, you build your team, we get in that puddle and we fix the problem. Here are some questions while we are fixing the problem. When you realize that something in an organization that you are a part of and you are a leader in, and when I say a leader in, that doesn't mean you have to have a title yet. You might just be a member of the organization. That still means that you are a leader. You need to ask these essential questions as you're listening to what is being said in the meeting, to the one-on-one conversations you may have with those participants. You need to figure out, do you have the friends to help you fix the problem or address the issue or change the stagnant water? And the stagnant water, of course, represents the challenges, the issues, or maybe it's just the stagnation of the organization when there's opportunity for growth. Friends also means, do you just have the backing? Because what you don't want to do is, I'm going to change this by myself. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm not going to ask anyone in the organization. I'm just going to come up with the PowerPoint, show up at the meeting and say, I have something to say. We need to do this and we need to do it now. No, that's not going to work. You need to build a community and get some support, get some understanding, and do not do it alone. Do you have the finances? Now I have finances and friends in quotes because I don't literally mean friends. The friends could be members of your organization. You may not be personal friends, but in essence, do you have someone who's with you, aligned with your goals? Finances can mean resources. Do you have the resources? Sometimes finances, when you're asking these questions, literally means, is there the budget for it? If you need to adapt from something that's free to something that's going to cost money, you need to have the budget line for it. Do you have the time and capacity? Right now, I know I need to keep it moving because I have a lot of slides for you, so I can't speak too long on these issues, but I hope you get the point that these are essential questions. Do you have the time and the questions and the capacity to jump in there and fix that stagnant water? And the last thing I added on here is, do you have the faith? Because hope is great, but hope is more like a wish. Faith, on the other hand, is like hope with work. So I'm not necessarily talking about, do you believe in a God or not, or a higher power? Do you have the faith to jump in and be a change agent and find a solution to a problem when there's an opportunity? So when you ask yourself these essential questions, the final question is, should you just go with the flow, or should you find a fix? Flow or fix? So I want you to think about it. If it ever comes to mind that, hey, maybe we need to do something about this. Every once in a while, there are some times when going with the flow, at least for a time, is necessary. But eventually, I guarantee you, if you are a powerful, adaptive listener, you are going to need to help fix the issue. The process isn't pretty. If you are playing in muddy puddles, if you are one of these change agents who are willing to get in there and change that stagnant organization, you're going to have to get dirty. And notice no one here in this picture is doing it alone. You're going to have a team. You're going to have to get in there and do the work. It's not going to be a pretty process, but as long as you're willing to start and do the work, it can end up to be a beautiful thing. So how do we listen adaptively to make change? First, you need to diagnose the issue. Now, a diagnosis is something we should all be familiar with. If you go to the emergency room, you were triaged, right? You go to the triage room first, they take your blood pressure, they get to know you, they ask you questions, they ask, do you feel safe at home? They ask some deep questions. okay? They take your temperature and they figure out what's going on with you, at least for your vitals, you know? Sometimes when you show up to a meeting or if you want to join an organization, you need to make sure that the temperature of the organization matches who you are and what you want to be, okay? Just because the organization is a great dancing organization and you like to dance doesn't mean you need to be a leader in that organization if they do not align with who you are and what you need. So diagnosis in this realm of adaptive listening means when you're listening, listen for what the problem or the opportunity is, okay? So sometimes I put in brackets the items that I added. The other items I got from Heifetz, the book that I told you that I read about adaptive leadership et al. And in the book, they talk about you need to diagnose, so figure out what the problem is, check the temperature, triage the issue, hear for what the needs are, and then decide what to do. I added the brackets to say, in the middle of diagnosing, you also need to divide between, hey, is this something I need to flow with for a while? Or is this something I can fix? That's what I mean by divide. Or you can divide between, hey, is this a personal problem that I have with the organization? Maybe because it just doesn't match with me, or is this something the whole organization needs to recognize and change? Okay. And then if we're going to decide, ultimately, we're going to lead to the doing. I put another little, I like alliteration, of course. I might have an English background. So also to adaptively listen, you need to hear, find the hope in what you're hearing, because maybe all you're hearing is complaints and problems, and hone in to fix it. Hone in means to find a plan. And I actually have another slide that's going to talk about that. So I won't go too deep into it. The primary part is what you already know how to do, is to listen some more. Listen here, listen there, listen everywhere, as Dr. Seuss would say if you had a book like this or a topic like this. You need to diversify your listening. Just because you have maybe close friends in an organization or people that you're friends with that you talk to a lot who are a part of the same leadership group, it's great to involve yourself with them, but it's also good to get a different perspective. Ask different people. Talk to not just people you know, talk to other members of the organization in leadership before you start to decide whether or not this is something you need to fix or change. And as you get a perspective, maybe from, let's just say you're at a dance party, okay? And you're dancing with your friends at the party, right? You may be having a great time, you know, everything's going swell. Then let's say you have the opportunity to go stand on a balcony and look down at the party. You may see that your friends at the party were the only ones having fun. So that's why it's good to get a different perspective and to stand from a different vantage point to maybe engage yourself with other individuals or other parts of the organization so that you can know exactly what's going on comprehensively and not just from one perspective. And then also to adaptively listen, you need to research, do your research. And the research could be researching outside of the organization, research what other organizations like yours is doing, research within the organization. What has the history been? What is the mission statement? What are the goals? And how can we make sure we are aligned with them? So just to put it a little bit more simplistically, there are 4 steps, I believe, to adaptively listen. Of course, the first step is listen. I didn't even put listen on here. That active listening, that's not stated. It's kind of like with the iceberg. You kind of only see the little bit at the tip, at the top of the water, and underneath is the big mountainous structure. So we know that listening is that big mountainous structure at the bottom. But once you get into the realm of adaptively listening, first you need to understand the issue, understand the opportunity. Next, you need to strategize, make a plan. That's where you answer those essential questions that I spoke about. That's when you say, hey, do I have the support to help make this change? Do I have the finances, the resources? Do I have the time personally? Make your plan, strategize. So as you listen, you understand what's going on more and more the more research you do. Then you start to strategize and plan. This red button here is that execute button. Boom, hit the button when you're ready to go and do. Will you always feel ready to hit the button and execute your plan or your strategy, even after months or days or weeks of planning? No, you will not. Did I feel like I was going to have a great, perfect presentation sitting here? I I did to an extent because I was going to do my best, but that's what execute means. When you know that the time is right for you to act, you can't always wait for your feelings or your emotions or your thoughts or the time or the money to be perfect. Sometimes you just have to Nike and just do it. And the last option is evaluate. After you understand the issue or the opportunity, you make your plan, you execute it, meaning you do it at level 1 at the best you can do it. Because guess what? You can go back and evaluate, get feedback, see how you did, assess how it went, and then maybe you can make change. And this is how we adapt. This is how we evolve properly. These are pretty much the 4 steps in my mind. Now, as you were listening to this and as you involve yourself in adaptive listening more and more research and greater experts come out about the topic, I hope and I pray that you were able to come up with more and more opportunities to make this even more succinct, more powerful. But for right now, if you listen, understand, strategize, execute, and evaluate, you are well on your way to being a change agent that makes a difference. Another thing I want to point out is while you are listening, make sure you consider the credibility of the sources and the research that you were using to understand the person you were listening to. Okay. What if you show up to an organization meeting for the very first time? You know, some of you are going to graduate soon. A lot of you are seniors. And maybe you're going to go to a job that has different organizations, okay? Or different committees. And as you get to know these different committees, maybe you're listening to one person who you kind of have a good relationship with. You're able to talk well with them. You have fun with this person. You enjoy their company. But maybe you realize they've only been there for a week, just like you. Okay? Their credibility and understanding the organization is not going to be as in-depth as it should be to be someone to help you understand what is going on in this organization outside of the research. So you have to think about these things. Of course, if we think about social media, as we've adapted to a world that is online, that is very social, everyone puts their business online. Anyone can make up anything. I can put in bold print that so-and-so won $1 million, post it as a meme. Maybe 5 people will actually repost it before they realize that it's made up and it's not true because they didn't do their research. So make sure that while you were listening to credible sources and doing the research. Another thing in that word divide that I added with diagnosis and do, something that we need to do, is divide between emotions and facts. Long ago, at least I felt like when I was younger, a lot of listening had to be, hey, listen for the facts, listen for the truth, right? And those things are absolutely very important. However, as we evolve from just active listening to the facts and the truth, we know that we can't leave out compassion and emotion. We are a very, I won't say an emotional world, but emotional and intelligence is a big concern and need for leadership, okay? So I don't want you to negate your emotions about things. I don't want you to negate the act of being compassionate towards others in the realm of listening. It is a big and important part, and it's just as important as the logos. Let's just say you're a leader, you're an entrepreneur, and you are selling a product. You can't just sit down and say, hey, my product is the cheapest, it's the most quality, come buy my product, it makes sense. That's the fact. Okay? Yeah, to you. Okay? Did you hone into people's emotions? Did you tell your stories? One of the things I said is that I am a lover of authentic stories. People buy products and invest in things and opportunities and businesses because they connect to the story, they connect to the emotion, they connect to the power of the person. So while you were listening, while you were adapting and looking for opportunities to not only just change an organization, maybe you want to build an organization yourself. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you already are an entrepreneur. Or maybe you're striving to be. Keep the emotion, keep the logic, and make sure not only that you are looking for credible people in your realm, in your spectrum, but you be that credible person as well. All right, so I'm going to fly through these. I have some tips for adaptive listening in addition to those 4 steps. And I'm going to see at the end who is listening. I have a question here. It says, I'm enjoying your presentation. How do you manage and implement adaptive listening when your opinion or values may be in opposition to a person or organization? Oh, this is a good question. And or if you feel as if you are not being heard. That is a great question. And I definitely understand where this comes from. This is a perfect issue. I'm going to think about this, and at the end of my question portion, I'm going to come back because I don't have the answer popped up in my head right at the moment. But the rest of you who are in this group, I want you to also add to the chat any options or solutions you think would be a good option for this question as well. Okay, so I got to think about things. I have to diagnose and think. So while I'm reading this, I'm going to be diagnosing and thinking before I can adapt to answer this question. Okay, because there's no perfect answer, and I can't give the perfect expert answer, and you can definitely support that. So a couple of tips: follow up and meet about the topic. And you know what? This might help with the answer to that. And I can't see who exactly asked this. It says unknown user, but follow up and meet about the topic. Maybe you need to talk to either the individuals who are listening to you, who you feel you do have a better relationship with, maybe than the person who you don't feel like value your opinion, and get their opinion about it. Get their suggestions about it. See if maybe you can come together and find a solution, because there's strength in numbers. Two are better than one because they have a two is always better than one. There used to be a song, "It takes two to make a thing go right." Okay, and there's a verse in the Bible that I love that it says, "Woe unto him that is alone when he falleth, because he has no one to lift him up." So we don't want to do things alone. We want to do it in a pack. Also, a couple things about adaptive listening tips. You want to take notes. I recommend using the Evernote app. Anyone ever knows me, I always say download the app called Evernote. You may have notes on your phone with iPhone, but I want you to download the Evernote app because it allows you to put things in. I know you can put things in files and folders and notes, but the Evernote app allows you to do it a little more organized. You can add audio, you can add pictures. I really think it'll be helpful, especially for those of you with Androids. Diversify your sources. Maybe you feel a certain type of way in a situation in your organization, and you're listening and you're just not hearing the things that you need to hear. I already mentioned getting a different vantage point, getting a different perspective, and diversifying the information and what you're listening to. Go to different organizational pages. Look online. Right now, YouTube has a plethora of opportunity and information there. They may even have meetings from other organizations that you can listen to for solutions. And then clarify whether, and I think I'm missing a word here, sometimes there are some issues that are just an issue of the day. Maybe it just arises because someone is in the moment finding enacting a solution to a problem. And sometimes you have to dig deeper because the symptoms of a problem are actually a deeper systemic issue. Okay. If we all remember 2020 back then, I remember George Floyd. Everybody remembers that, right? A heart-wrenching time in our lives. And while that one incident was an issue, it was a symptom of a bigger problem. So while you're listening, this research and this diversifying your sources and making sure you have credible sources that have been there a while can help you dig deeper to see, hey, maybe we have a few more layers to uncover before we can act a solution, because this is deeper than we think. And then lastly, just to kind of clarify between fact, emotion, or personal opinion, we have subjective and we have objective. Subjective means something is personal. Basically, this is usually in the realm of observations. So if I observe, if I look out and I see a rainbow, I think of the story in the Bible where God said he would never flood the earth again. Okay. If someone else sees a rainbow, they may think of the LGBTQ flag. Okay. Those are different perspectives, and both of them are objective because both of them come from fact. There is a part in history where in the Bible it says that the rainbow represents this, and now the rainbow also represents that. So that is an objective, that is a fact-based truth. Okay. Everything just isn't, oh, this is that, this is that. There can be more than one option. My subjective feelings about things, they matter to me, but they may not matter to a whole organization. So we have to be very careful to make sure that the things that we align ourselves with and the opportunities that we take to make change in the world aren't just going to impact us, but they involve the whole organization. So I do have someone who started answering this question in the chat. I appreciate that. I don't know why I can't move on with my slide. There we go. Wasn't hitting hard enough. All right, leadership tips. Leadership starts with you and continues through your organization. So the first person you should be leading any and every day, the first person you should be adaptive listening to is you. And I'm going to talk more about how to adaptively listen to yourself in a moment, but it starts with yourself and then it continues through your organization. You are a representative of your organization. You are a microcosm of whatever organization or whatever business or whatever entity that you are a part of, and you represent that. But more importantly, you also represent you and your own beliefs and your own values and your own system, and that matters, and you don't have to change that just because you align yourself with another group. Leadership then builds with mentorship and experience. If you were here when I talked about my story about teaching 8th grade and how the fight just popped out of the blue, it didn't pop up out of the blue. And had I been able to adaptively listen then, because I had the experience with students or even with my own children, I would have known that fight was going to happen probably a week prior, okay? So with experience, things are able to grow, but also experience is a substitute teacher for mentorship. That's not my quote. I know that's a pretty quote. I didn't make it up, so I can't take credit for it. Experience is a substitute teacher for mentorship. If someone can tell you or say to you what's going to happen if you do this or if you try this, then you don't have to go through maybe the challenging experience of digging yourself through the mud trying to figure out how to make a solution, and they have an easy, quick fix because they've done it before. Okay? So also consider leadership versus authorityship. Make sure yourself as a leader, you are leading in a way that inspires people, that mentors others, and that builds. Authorityship means I have a title, I'm an authority, you have to do what I say. That's not the type of leader we want to be. Yes, you may have a title. Yes, you may have to tell people what to do and get them in line and train them. But leadership is not, I'm just the boss, say what I do, say what I do, say what I, ooh, I apologize, friends, do what I say and do what I say. That's not the type of ship we're on. This is not a slave ship, okay? This is a cruise ship. Everyone should be cruising and enjoying their time together. And even if it's work and there's no enjoyment, that work, that grinding through the mud together is coming to a solution. So that's enjoyable when you see results. So adaptive listening and you continued. Listen to yourself. Do your daily activities align with your goals? I remember doing a time management activity with one of my learning strategies courses at Delaware State University. And I stated that at the top of my priority was spending time praying with God and reading my Bible. Guess how much I actually did that in real life at the time? Probably no to 1 to 5 minutes a day. Okay. So whatever your said goals are in life, or maybe just for this semester, maybe just for this day or this hour, make sure that if you looked at your time sheet, you've spent adequate time to be able to justify that, yes, I am working toward that goal. I am working towards it. This really is a goal of mine. And I'm not just saying it's a goal. I am listening to what I'm doing each day, and I'm adapting my activities to make sure it aligns with my goals. Do your goals and actions still fit you? Sometimes you may realize I'm in the wrong major. Has anyone in this room changed your major at all? You can put it in the chat. Maybe when you came into college, you thought that you wanted to be a chemistry major. Then you realize that you actually love teaching. So you changed your major to education. That is A-OK. You are not stuck in one boat. You are not stuck in one ship. You need to listen and adapt to yourself, to your heart, to your soul, to your beliefs, to whatever's in you that's driving you, and do what you need to do. So the first person adaptive listening should change is you. And the last question I have here is, do you need to personally listen to your needs and adapt? I will say that after being a professor at Delaware State University in the role of an adjunct while doing other roles since 2012, what is this, 2023? So 11 years, I decided to leave and go back to teaching in grade school. Now I'm teaching first graders, whereas at Delaware State University, I was teaching English students, helping with their composition, with their literature courses, or helping the campus write better overall, I decided that maybe I chose this and it suited me for a while and I enjoy it. Maybe I need to pivot, listen to my heart. Maybe I want to speak to that 6-year-old who can't read or who may struggle with reading the rest of their life if their first grade teacher doesn't get in there and make sure that they have all the tools and the confidence they need to then go to college and be the best that they can be. So in June, as my friends know from URELAH, I left Delaware State University in my official capacities. I will come back in adjunct, and I became a first grade teacher. I listened adaptively to myself. I pivoted, and that is A-okay. I have some friends that say they changed their career aspirations from MD to physician assistant based on my values. I totally get it. I know, as a matter of fact, all of my doctors who actually listen and take time, and I felt cared most about me, were physician's assistant PAs, all of them. Maybe you have more time if you're a PA, so you have to listen to yourself. Someone said they were a nursing major. I realized I don't like being around sick people. I don't like being around sick people either, but some reason I'm always sick. That's probably why. I got a cold right now, but that's okay. We push through. And someone else said they changed career from healthcare administration to media to higher education. Exactly. I went from higher education to lower education. Make sure you're listening to you and your needs. And even in the moment, are you hungry? Because you can't go through anybody's mud. You can't do the process of adaptive listening. You can't do anything if you aren't rested or fueled. And that's just, I'm a foodie. I did say I was a foodie, so I had to throw that in there somewhere. So do you need to adapt? First, you have to listen with care. Then you have to think about those essential decisions and accept the right challenges. Because like I said, sometimes you just have to go with the flow, at least for a little bit, while you kind of figure it out. And that's one of the things I would say to my friend in the chat who said, how do you implement adaptive listening when your opinions or values may be in opposition to a person or organization? I know of a situation currently where an individual waited until the person retired to then be able to make change in an organization. Now, that is not the optimal situation. We don't want to have to wait till somebody retires or roles change or the president steps down for then things to happen. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to go with the flow until it does. However, a person like me, I probably wouldn't be able to sit and wait that long. Now, the person was retiring in about a month. So it wasn't like they were waiting, 20 years, like, oh, I'll just wait till they leave. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying someone was already had their name in to retire. And you feel you're not being heard. I would try to have a follow-up. I would try to have a one-on-one conversation. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation. And I'm going to talk more about that. I think I have some more slides that are going to help with that question. That's probably the most important question out there. Be ready for some risk. That one-on-one conversation I'm proposing that you have, if you feel like you're not being heard, that's going to take some risk. That takes getting in the mud. That is not just a normal day, but that's sometimes what it takes to then be able to become that change agent in a place where you don't feel like you can be that change agent. And I will also say, sometimes you have to leave that organization. Maybe that organization isn't right for you. Sometimes you have to start your own organization that then does the things and has the values that you have. We don't have to stay in one box just because it's the box that's out there and it seems appealing. Sometimes you got to get out that box and make a new box for yourself and for others, so that then they can feel safe to use their voice in the box with you. I know that box analogy is going a little far, but track with me, guys. Leadership, again, it starts with you. Also, in one of my last questions in my who, what, where, when, and why, and I'm going to end because I know it's 11:50. When? Start today. Keep your ear for growth. That's all of adaptive listening is about. And I'm going to go back because if you notice, that is a potted will be plants. There is a seed in there. It's starting to sprout. The beginning process isn't pretty. It seems like nothing's happening, but sometimes you have to just plant a seed with individuals and then it will grow over time as you continue to water it, continue to add your understanding and your clarity and your strategy and your execution and your evaluation. So I've made a case for adaptive listening. Here's the call. Here's the call to action. I need you to listen to adapt. Keep your ear open for adaptation and where the opportunities are, and maybe where the opportunities aren't just yet. But that's how we remain proactive in a world where we know that the climate is changing. The climate is always changing around us. Climates are changing in our organizations. And we have to understand that in order to be proactive and get ahead of it, or at least to react well if we're already behind, for some reason. That's the way you can bridge the gap between what the goals are and what the needs are and what the future is and what it's going to be, where you need to get to. So listen to adapt, bridge the gap, but number one is going to take some way for you to act. All right, let me read the response to our friend here. Someone said, I have run into this question personally, the question about what do you do if you don't feel heard, or like your values aren't being respected. The biggest thing helps me when faced with the challenge of not agreeing with one's views is understanding the perspective or principle. You may or may not agree with a specific topic, but if you were on the other side seeking counsel, what would logically assist you with whatever dilemma you're facing? Focus on the principle they're addressing, not the problem itself, if that makes sense. Okay, I get it. And maybe for the reason that they're doing what they're doing, the reason that you may not feel heard, I would definitely try very hard not to take offense or take it personally that you feel like you're not being heard right away. It could just be that it's the way that things have been done for so long that even if you do have great opinions, great values, great inserts of opportunities for the organization, especially if you're new, sometimes it takes building a relationship first. A lot of times in leadership is less of let's do this and get to the facts. Is do they trust you? Do they have a relationship with you? So that's why I recommend starting those relationships. Then if you start to feel like it's definitely something personal, they maybe say or tell you they don't like you, or there are certain things that do happen. I'm not going to pretend like the world of professionalism and leadership is perfect. Sometimes it's like high school. It really is. And it's somewhat petty. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm very honest. Okay. But I will say that more often than not, if everyone is aligning with the goals and the mission, then that's the move forward. If you have an opinion or a value that goes towards that future that is brighter than today, then keep it up and don't get distracted, even if people don't hear you right away. Keep trying. All right. Do I have any questions? I probably have time for just one question or two. I would like you to what was I going to say? To unmute if possible, if you have a question, or type in the chat. Are there any questions? I know some of you have to go, and Ms. Craig, if you can just stop me here, I can stop here.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And we will make sure that Professor McCray gets them and we can answer them for you. But I do want to be mindful of people. Now we don't have, all the Zoom classes. So some students have to walk to class and you have to get there. But I was going to say Mrs. Professor McCray, if you want to just wrap up and give your final words, and then we'll just have a couple announcements for the group.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you gleaned something from this and you found some value in this. If nothing else, to start asking yourself questions about how you can enable adaptive leadership and adaptive listening in your daily life. There's a case for it. There's a need for it. And you're probably already doing, but this was conceptualized as just a way to kind of package it. If you remember, if you just understand what's going on from different perspectives, strategize, make a plan with your friends, execute it, and then evaluate what you did. But guess what? Then that cycle goes back around. You got to understand what you evaluated, start over, and keep executing again until it works. So this is the book that I told you that I gleaned from for this presentation, The Practice of Adaptive Leadership. Again, there's a book coming out in 2024 on adaptive listening. So look out for that on Amazon. I will say that if you love education or like kids, my community organization is looking for volunteers to come to my elementary school and help out with some students. So if you need volunteer time, and there's actually opportunities for you to get paid as well, let me know. I'll put my email in the chat. Other than that, everybody continue to adapt and be great and have a great day. That's all, Ms. Craig. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That was amazing. Let me tell you guys, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. So yeah, Professor McCray has been my best friend since 4th grade. Don't ask us how long that's been. But anyway, she came in and rocked it as I knew that she would. And let me find out that I'm before the curve when it is when we're talking about leadership. Okay, so adaptive listening is something that I really thought that we all should be hone in on and be more aware of, and to find out that that space is still open. For interpretation, and how Professor McCray just laid it all out for us, didn't she? Like, so amazing, just super clear. I see a book in her future in regards to adaptive listening. So thank you guys for joining us. Really quickly, before I give the last words to Dr. Poe, I'm going to share my screen. 3 things to talk about. Oh my goodness, my computer is being slow. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, hopefully you guys can see my screen. If not, just bear with me. So we have our leadership training program. We had to push it back until next week, but starting next Tuesday. Screenshot, register now, go on our Instagram and register. We have our next leadership development session that's coming up. It is Hello, my name is Walking with Confidence. We want to make sure that everybody is in their leadership roles. Again, everybody's a leader where they stand right now. So, but walking in and pursuing that in confidence. So make sure that you guys are signing up for that, which is going to be October 12th at 11 a.m. And lastly, what you're all waiting for is our gift cards. You guys can be able to stop in the office. Miss Terry is going to be there, I believe, today and tomorrow, or you can stop in next week and see me to get it. We're going to pick 2. Your name got added if you were, you came off of mute and you said something, or you were participating in the chat, you got extra, and then you got a 1 entry just for showing up today. So Tamia Price, you won our first $25 Grubhub gift card. Please make sure that you reach out to me to schedule your time to pick it up, and then we'll do one more. It's taking a minute. I don't know why it's hesitating, but here we go. And Lauren Smith, I think you won last year, but look, you won again. So Lauren and Tamia, come and make sure that you guys get your information, or your email me to schedule time to come pick up your gift cards. Dr. Poe, I will leave the last words to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Craig. Thank you, Professor McCray. Thank you so much for, they're not golden nuggets, they're like titanium. We really appreciate your knowledge. You shared it. So very proud of you, as you've given so much to higher ed, and now to the first graders. They definitely need you. You have such a gift, and it all definitely showed today. We appreciate you taking this time out. My takeaway was, I called it the UC, understand, strategize, execute, and evaluate. Thank you so much for that. And we learned so much more. We really appreciate all of you coming out. Our Hornets, we're so proud of you. Don't forget to spread the word. Post it on Instagram, TikTok, or whatever you call those things. And so we'll make sure that we'll advertise on the hub. Spread the word, especially to the student leadership organizations, OSLA, and all of those folks. We really appreciate you taking the time out. Have a blessed day. Have a better tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Keep shining, students. Bye now.
And if anybody is staying on, I did stop the recording, I think. If anybody can stay on and turn on their cameras, I'd love to get a picture of this group.